Here we go. Welcome to the Transform with Travel podcast, where we share stories of personal transformation and life lessons through our experiences of traveling and exploring the world. Travel is the ultimate accelerator for personal growth, and it can be the root catalyst for the pivots and plot twists we make in our lives. I'm your host, Kelly Tolliday, and it's my mission to inspire you to live life to its fullest, travel with an open mind and heart, and let the world show you a new perspective. I'm so grateful you're here with us today, so let's dive right in. Happy exploring. Kelly, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here and be able to share your story. Everyone, I want to introduce you to Kelly Fischer. She is the founder of Depth Theory, where marketing meets mindset. Kelly supports brand building consciousness through Depth Theory, a content marketing studio allowing founders to take time away from their platforms and really just doing the things that they love, why they got into the business in the first place. And part of that for you, part of the things that you love is traveling and exploring and adventuring and being in the present moment. We've talked about this at length. Kelly and I have been friends for well over a year now, I like to think, right?
2 years.
2 years. Wow, I can't believe it. We met at a networking event in South Florida.
That's right.
A networking event called Creative Zen for everyone who's local to South Florida. It's an amazing event, put on free event for creatives and freelancers and marketing and nonprofit and anyone really in the wellness space, really anyone in any industry to come together and get inspired. And that's where we met. We met one morning and we were hosting an event. Rising Nature Retreats was hosting an event, I think the next day.
That's
and
right.
You were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. And ever since then, we've kind of been following each other's journeys and catching up over coffee and having some of the most beautiful conversations. So I'm excited to invite you here into this platform and to be able to share your story with our community. Part of this podcast is being able to share stories of personal transformation and growth, being able to share stories of lessons and challenges that you've gone through and how you bring your experiences of travel into your life, into your business, into how you portray yourself and really live up to the standard that you want to live to based on your experiences of traveling. So I have just loved following your journey this year, and I really can't wait to dive in. I would love for you to just share a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your life story and how traveling has fit into the pieces of the puzzle of your life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the time and energy of inviting me here and sharing in this community. You mentioned we met at that community event and you were so nonchalant in saying, I have something going on tomorrow. And that was the catalyst to really finding my people here in South Florida. That event that was held in your backyard, you and Chloe leading the way through meditation, through a yoga practice, and just calling in your people. I mean, the like-mindedness that was there throughout. I remember leaving and feeling so fueled from the energy that I guess, you always think about when moving to a new city. And now this was 2 years ago now. I've lived in Fort Lauderdale for 3 years. And I just recall knowing who I wanted to call in as friendships and community-wise. It was there in front of me. And I just have to say thank you for making that happen through Rising Nature Retreats. And now to see all the growth that has come a year later, 2 years later. Incredible. So with helping brands build consciousness, I saw a need for these founders to really dive into the purpose of why they built their business. You think about Rising Nature Retreats, it's to travel. And here you are creating the community that wants to do the same and also enabling it through the retreats that are unfolding. But it's kind of, as we find ourselves with the 222 things that are on our ever-expanding to-do list as founders, we get away from our mission, our purpose. And so I come in behind the scenes and help founders through content marketing really discover their why they're bringing this mission to others and call in their community in alignment.
It's amazing. I love that. And I think it's so needed now in today's world. Really, consumers are looking for brands that are connected to their why. They're not just looking to throw money at any businesses anymore. They want to feel connected to the brands that they're investing in. And that's something that I think brands need to focus a lot more on is their why, and being able to portray their why in a way that makes sense to consumers as well.
And I'm certain we didn't craft these lifestyles to be staring at a screen, like aimlessly being like, what's next? What do I do now? Like we made these, decisions in life, decisions in business to really craft the life that we dreamt of. And I think we're in this digital era where we have the opportunity, everything at our hands, really. If you want to lean into the tools that are available, it's there. It's just knowing what to do with these resources. And so, yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
Of course.
And with travel, I know you've had quite a big year of travel so far already, but I guess I'll back up. Starting your own business creates a level of freedom within your lifestyle, and creates a level of freedom that you get to decide when you get to travel, where you get to travel, how much time you get to take off. Of course, it takes a lot of discipline and routine to be able to get to that stage. And it's not just like, oh, I own my own business. Goodbye. I'm jet setting all the time. But was that in creating your own freedom-filled life, I guess you could say, was creating your own business and being a business owner was part of that, to be able to have the freedom to choose how you spend your days and which adventures you go on?
Yeah. You think about what depth is to me, and there's not necessarily a definition for depth. It's going to range from individual to individual. It's more of a feeling. But what that is immersing in those moments where you are just the most you can be. And how do you create a business behind this? And I don't like to orient everything around business, because really that's not what we're here for. We're here to live. And if we can immerse that into the why and into our day and how it unfolds, then yes, 3 years ago when I had the decision to continue with the company that I was with or create something from scratch, hell yeah, I jumped into that. Through resources that we have, again, in this era of complete digital freedom. And that word itself, just to recognize that we really have whatever we can envision. And we know this through what we've witnessed ourselves in this community. And if we're not grabbing onto that, what are we doing? If we can visualize it, it can unfold for us. And it's just putting those aligned action steps behind it. And for me, I knew traveling was something that was part of my purpose here, right? Like, how else are we so inspired then? I don't know, Kel, if you've ever I know you've been in another country eating a croissant, but like, do you know that moment where the food of the country is just all over you? Like, you have it covered, your clothes are covered, and you're just in the moment. That is depth to me, right? That is just complete presence in knowing where you are and leaning into your senses, all of them.
I love that sense of not just living life to its fullest or just like ticking off a whole bunch of things on a bucket list to do that. I know we've spoken a lot about Instagram versus what we actually want to experience. But what it sounds like to me is you're saying living life with depth, living, even if it's just the smallest of small moments, even if it's a mundane moment at home, how can we continue to live life with such depth that every moment has a possibility to be beautiful? And travel often highlights that beauty a little bit more because you're out of your day-to-day and you're seeing things with fresh eyes, and maybe a beautiful flower down a street in Paris jumps out at you more than a beautiful flower down the street in your own home. And that's the beauty of travel, is it allows you to open your eyes a little bit more. But I love your mindset around this depth. And I guess another word you could say is presence. I know we've spoken a lot about how can we live more in the present moment. I think especially as travelers, we can get on to when's my next trip? When's the next thing? After this, I'm going to go here and then I'm going to go here. And you talk a lot
of where we are booking the next place. And
exactly.
It's like, whoa,
literally already talking about 2024 travel plans when you're not even halfway through 2023. So I do love that concept of just being where you are. And it sounds like to me when you were speaking about your decision to move from a more corporate job into owning your own business, and you were like, hell yeah, let's do it. It seems to me that you have a lot of trust in yourself, and it seems like you have a lot of trust in the unfolding of the universe. Have you always been like that, or has there been a sense of tools that you've built or a sense of resilience that you've been able to cultivate? Like, how is that innate to you, or have you built that? How does that unfold? Because not a lot of people have the strength or the courage currently. Everyone has it within them, but not a lot of people have the courage to step out of that mold and step out of that comfort zone to be able to build the life of their dreams. And it seems like when you're telling the story, you're like, hell yeah, let's do it. So how does that unfold for you?
I am a firm believer in placing ourselves in environments that we feel inspired, enabled to grow. And I am so fortunate to have individuals surrounding me from a family perspective, friend perspective, that have always uplifted me and really pointed out these innate abilities that I have. And it's through that it's really been instilled in me. What we have in front of us is what we can work with. And that and the power of motivation, finding it inside, like we always step into this strength, like muscular power. But if you can flex those neuromuscles of your mind to make yourself happy, whatever the situation may be, and not in a toxic positivity way, but almost be flexible. Be flexible with what is surrounding you and kind of lean into it. Be fluid with it. Go more so unrigid into unknown waters. And I think it's the curiosity in me that has led me to where I am, not only through life, but travels itself. Growing up, we had beach vacations that were incredible within the home state of Maryland where I grew up. I never really did these incredible, if you will, like international vacations. That was beyond foreign to me. And then in university, an opportunity was presented, and I knew if I could get the grant, or what was it? What do they call it? A scholarship. Yeah. That's right. Thank you. The scholarship, then it could be my ticket to go. And so, yeah, just taking the talents of which have always been brought out and, pointed out. I applied for the scholarship and shook hands with the right people, placed myself in the environment of which to grow. And that led me to my first trip internationally to France. And then I ended up staying a bit longer after it was a 2-week trip, and I ended up staying for 2 more weeks. It's just one of those things. You place yourself around the right people, around the right energy, and you feel the most you. And I have definitely within my life been very cognizant of that. If someone's not within the same wavelength, it's not as though you ignore an individual, but you know what energy to give.
I love that for sure. And I love when you talked about that, like mental flexibility. So on your recent trip to back to Europe,
yes,
is that your first time back since you went to France, or had you been back to Europe?
I had been back.
Okay. Oh yeah, I remember you went on a retreat, to a surf retreat.
That's right.
Yeah,
in Portugal.
So you recently went to Italy.
That's right.
You decided to go take a couple months and go travel.
2 months time in a place that I do not know the language, do not know any of the people.
And you're a sun girl, and it was cold.
Oh, yeah.
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 So tell me a little bit about your experience, one, like what you were doing there, how you found accommodation, like all that whole. And I also would love to hear about building that mental resilience, mental flexibility, the depth side of things, like how all of these themes are kind of pulling into that experience of being back in Italy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'll premise this with anything in life should have an intention behind it, whether it's the wake up, how, we're grounding ourselves in the very moment when our eyes open. Have an intention behind that once you're kind of coming to. Same thing with travel. Go with an intention. That's, one thing I would share with anyone. And my intention behind going to the north of Italy for 2 months' time was to slow down and really appreciate what I am sharing in my day-to-day with other individuals, what we're having conversations about, immersing in the depths of life, but really slowing down and appreciating what's in front of us. And not always going, telling people what we're doing, but rather just doing. And for me was Italy in the springtime is not too warm. And for anyone who hasn't been, of course, we see everything on social media as highlighting what I would say spring and summer seasons, but not the winter. And when I was looking at, okay, I've got 2 months time to travel, where should I go? Should it be Australia, Thailand? These places have been where my heart has desired to go, and I know I will get there. But I wanted to position myself in a place that I would be so uncomfortable. And I'm not saying like massively uncomfortable, but just not exactly my day to day. And this is for the purpose of growth. Because if we place ourselves in these positions, just as I was saying, the environment of creating what it is that we want to unfold in our day to day, then you're enabling yourself, right? To grow through that uncomfortable, to lean into your innate senses, whatever you've got inside of you, to really uncover what's always been there, but placing yourself in different environments to then have it unfold. So Italy, I spent my time with a family there. So there's a program, and everyone has to look this up, called Workaway. And essentially, I think the best way to describe it would be like an exchange of your time for accommodation. And while there was opportunities all over the globe, Italy for me was helping a family with their 2 daughters, ages 3 and 10, and essentially being a big sister to them. I guess one word that comes to mind would be an au pair, but it wasn't that in any sense. Rather, the family was fortunate to travel all over the globe, but when they had their 2 girls, they couldn't really travel with them, and they wanted to bring the culture to their girls. And so, yes, this is absolutely incredible. What an opportunity, because I got to really experience the culture, not from a tourist perspective, but rather in the living room, having dinner every night, cafe every morning, and diving into what their conversations look like, and slowing down and not asking so many questions, but rather taking it in. And what I found through that is that's the only way I want to travel now. I don't want to be the individual that's doing what is all over the Instagram map and what everyone else is going to, but rather seeing how the locals live.
I love that so much. And I love the idea of purposely inserting yourself into a situation that you know is not going to be the most comfortable. The most comfortable might be sitting at a all-inclusive resort with a drink in your hand, having somebody, bring you food and drinks all day. But you knew that this was going to be something that was out of your comfort zone. And that's something that we talk about a lot, is how to grow outside of your comfort zone, how to build that mental flexibility, build new neural pathways, build new strengths and skill sets by stepping outside of your comfort zone. And it doesn't have to be by living 2 months in a remote village in northern Italy. It could just be going to a new cafe, taking a different route to work, going to a different park. But in your sense, you really did go into a completely different world. As you said, not many people, or as you told me before when we spoke about this story a couple of weeks ago at the cafe, not a lot of people really spoke English very well. You were trying to find, the right train station, and you're getting lost all the time, and you were very clearly not from that area. And tell me a little bit about that, like mental fortitude that it took to not just like, all right, I'm getting the next plane ticket home. I'm coming home. Like, what did it take for you to really lean into that sense of I'm here to grow instead of trying to run back to a comfort zone? Or maybe that wasn't your experience at all. What was kind of going through your mind when you first realized like, oh shit, this is very different. This is a little bit, maybe it was a little bit more than I expected. Was that an experience that you had?
I would say, let me paint the picture. This small village in the north of Italy had about maybe 300 people. And it was fairly everything that I was able to walk to was like a whole new territory, right? Like for the senses. And even before I went, so this is also something I want to touch on. Some people won't understand why you're positioning yourself in a place to grow. And it's not as though you have to share that with everyone. You don't have to share your intention. And honest, that should be for you. You just tell people you're going, and people are going to have questions. And those that really appreciate what you're doing will lean into why you're doing it. But let me think here real quick. The way of day to day, I mean, think about even the time zone difference, right? Running a business consciously with clients, everything was flipped, everything. And also, I don't know, I've seen so many of individuals with our culture like really go into a spot and like have to take over. I was like, I just kind of want to be like, I want to like melt into this. Like maybe they won't know I'm here, but I'm just going to look around and learn from them. So yeah, you mentioned the trains, the transportation, transit, anything. I just watched. It was like this childlike wonder. I don't know what the fuck to do. I'm just going to look at what other people are doing. And it's kind of breaking down the ego on every level to be like, all right, instill some confidence in yourself. Like you've got this. And that's where the growth unfolds. Placing yourself in that uncomfortable position. You don't know how the day-to-day is going to go. You are there though. And what else are you to do? You can't think too far ahead. It's going to take away from the experience itself more than anything. And it's, that was in March. Now we're sitting in not late, but rather mid-August. And if I could go back to all of my journal entries and see the fortitude that unfolded, I'm just quite proud that what was unfolding for me is something that I will cherish. And not that I'm going to share everything. And it's the same with like taking photos when you travel, like have some things just for you and know that that's what's supposed to happen, and share what you want to share, but you don't have to share it all.
I love that. Like having pieces of your experience that doesn't have to be put on blast on social media. And being able to really just have that lesson for yourself. I think that's a huge part of our culture right now, is sharing every single aspect of just our lives, not just travel, but just of our lives. And it's like, what is a sacred part of that experience for you? And you can just keep it for yourself. It's almost a lesson or a challenge to anyone traveling out there, saying, all right, can you go on this trip and not post anything? And just see how that feels for you? Can you just sip this coffee in this cafe and not take the aesthetically pleasing Instagram story and just like be there, like we talked about, with the depth, and just allow yourself to soak it in?
And just think about the capacity for your mental journey if you're not worrying about all of that. I mean, but it's what we see. So it's almost intrinsic in our brain. Maybe I should do this. But take the chance on yourself and don't just be there. Totally. Be in that moment.
I love that so much. You mentioned a little bit before about how some people might not understand the adventure you want to take, the life path that you want to go on, saying, I'm quitting my job and I'm starting something new, saying I'm going away for 2 months to this village I know no one at, and sleeping and living at this family's house that I've never met before. There might be a couple questions raised by family, friends, community, and usually with good intentions. What would be your advice, I guess, for someone who is wanting to take a leap of faith, big or small? What would be your advice to be able to kind of combat not getting too bogged down with all the I should do this or I should be worried about XYZ, not to take in all this energy from all these other people? What would be your advice for that? Because you've taken quite a big leap of faiths in your life. And I'd love to hear like what your perspective is on that.
In short, you don't know what you don't know. And that's the perspective of others as well as your own. If they are, hitting you with so many questions, why should you do this? Or maybe that's not right. It's probably coming from a place that they have not experienced the generosity that you receive while traveling, the overall level of comfort and discomfort that makes you grow and turns you into a version of yourself that you probably haven't experienced before when you get back from traveling, even if it's 2 weeks' time, if it's a long weekend in Austin, Texas, in America. Like it's always going to be different, and you have to do it for you. And so I think people don't know what they don't know. And perhaps sharing what you can and letting others lean into the experiences that you grew from would then open the conversation for, oh, okay, I kind of get that. And if they don't get it, that's okay.
And so it sounds like almost like putting the blinders on a little bit. You know, when you're just saying if they don't get it, that's okay. But for a lot of people, that would be a game changer if their mom or their dad or their sister or their partner were like, I don't think you should go. You should be worried about. A lot of times, a lot of people would say, okay, then I'm going to listen to that. And it sounds like to you, it seems maybe that's been built up over time and years of building your own fortitude and your own strength. But I think it's like you said, you don't know what you don't know. And until you take that first leap of faith, you won't know how much strength you have. You won't know how beautiful the world is and open the world is for yourself. And so it's truly like just having that faith in yourself and having that trust that even if it's a quote unquote failure in any way, you're still learning. It seems like that leaning into learning is a really powerful place for you. I know you talk a lot about being curious and learning and observing. How does the observations that you've made about the different cultures that you visited and the observation that you made about yourself, how do you think that's informed the way that you now see and help brands through their own branding, and how that helps you navigate your own business of telling stories after just observing so many different stories around the world?
Often I think of the day that we'll be 85, right? And we'll be sharing these stories for the generations that have come. And within building brands, it's like, why not? Why not take the risk? See what calls in your people, and the same while traveling. Be 1000% yourself, and your people will come in alignment. It's like when you are experiencing that moment where you are so you, where, for example, you are reading the book that someone else sees, and an individual in another country comes up to you because they know that author and they have shared an experience from that book. And now you're talking to someone that seems like your best friend in a country that you've never been to before. It's like, take the risk. Why not? Why are we hiding the truest versions of ourselves? And with building anything in life, do it. We got one life.
Yeah. And I actually have a celebration of life I'm going to tomorrow. And it seems like every single time a funeral or a celebration of life or someone getting sick, it seems to be like a boulder or a wake up call. And for a couple of weeks, everyone's like, we've got one life. We've got to do it. And then we get bogged down with life again, and we get into the day to day, and we kind of forget that message. So how for you have you been able to cultivate a mindset of like, tomorrow's not guaranteed? How, life is beautiful, and there's depth and there's joy, but it seems as if life is too short, right?
Yeah.
And so how have you been able to keep that reminder for yourself when life does get a little bogged down, and to continue to say yes to these adventures?
Such a deep question. I love this. Every day that we wake up is the greatest gift. And there's a lot in life that has impacted that for me, but also just look around. The fact that we are here able to share in this space, to give each other energy. This is where we are in this moment. This is the most beautiful thing that is unfolding for us. And I find working with business owners, they are always thinking about the thing a year from now. And especially in our culture in America, we're always talking about what we're going to do instead of exactly what we did to get to what is in front of us, what's unfolding, and all the accomplishments that have happened, and the failures as well that have happened to take us to this very moment. I find sitting with that is what propels myself. And I can only speak for, that sentiment to really, really immerse in the very present in front of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not as though it has to be a morbid thing, but what if tomorrow didn't come around, What would you do with that granular piece of information? Smile at strangers, get talking to them. Why not?
Live the depth of life fully. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think studying Buddhism and studying different religions and philosophies and being so within the yogic mindset, I guess you could say, I think about death a lot.
Yeah.
And not in, like you said, not in a morbid way, just in a way that it is a reminder that nothing is permanent.
Right.
And that's a great thing, because when something really awful or hard or heartbreaking is happening, it's not permanent. Mm-hmm. And when something really joyous and amazing and celebratory is happening, that's also not permanent. And so it's to be able to feel the depths of those emotions so that when we do get back to our baseline, we know that we've survived both ends of the spectrum. And it reminds you, in my opinion, to say yes to those adventures. Yes, be smart, be pragmatic, have your safety net, but also you got to get out there and live your life. You've got to get out there and see what this world has to offer you.
Give yourself the permission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it sounds like to me, all of the yeses that you've said over the course of your life has just continued to build that fortitude and that strength within you to know that even if you do fall a little bit or something feels like it didn't go exactly the way it was meant to, you know that you've built up your reservoir of strength to know, I've been through this, I can get through this again.
Right.
And that's what owning a business can do for you. That's what traveling can do for you.
Yoga really speaks to the
yes. Shout out to yoga.
Yes, of course. We need to.
Yeah. And so I guess we could talk a little bit about yoga. I noticed on your Instagram when you were traveling, you posted a little bit about meditating and doing different practices and waking up and doing morning yoga. How was keeping your wellness routines with you while you were in such a foreign environment?
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing. When you are in such a environment that is so otherworldly to you, bring things from home that will ground you. The rituals that unfold in your day-to-day, bring them. If you're putting cinnamon in your coffee in the morning, get some cinnamon. Doesn't matter where you are, but that will bring you to the essence of your being. And instilling some of that within your day, you're not as far away from that home that you think you are. You can always create home wherever you are. And you always have your people that will be supporting you. And it's knowing that. It's coming to the practices, coming home to yourself and the meditation and the movement that reminds you, you've got this and your people are supporting you.
100%. I love that. And I love the idea.
And your body too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the idea that in order to be flexible mentally, physically, I guess through the yoga, but in order to be flexible mentally and be able to explore and feel like you've got the strength within you to go on a train you've never been on before, or try to speak in a language that you've never tried to speak before, and have all of these wide range of experiences and really go out and adventure and explore, it's super important to have those grounded routines. It's like you have to be grounded no matter where you are in the world.
You don't have to be, because it will happen when you're not grounded.
Oh, 100%.
And you're like, what? Oh, okay.
But you can see it. You can feel it in your brain, right? It's like, but just like you said, just a little bit of cinnamon in my coffee, because that's what I do at home.
Right.
That helps you kind of.
It's so good, right?
I've never done it. I'm going to have to try. It's like a pseudo chai latte or something that you make for yourself.
Yeah. If you know, you know.
Yeah. But oh yeah, I know it. I got you there. But yeah, it's like having those little tiny pockets of home or pockets of routine. Maybe it's 5 minutes of breath in the morning, because that just helps you be able to go out and adventure and see the world with new eyes. But having those little tiny grounded routines that you do for yourself while you're traveling helps you feel stable and steady and ready to take on whatever challenges come your way, because travel comes with challenges.
Oh, yeah. And I adore this phrase, pocketing, because you bring who you are, the essence of you, wherever you go, right? If you are living your most authentic, vibrant self. And that's also a takeaway from traveling as well. You pocket these moments that perhaps you're in a setting where you're in a group and everyone is on that same wavelength, and it's just so incredible but also those moments that are just for you when you're out at sea or maybe on a walk. And it could be a mundane moment just the same when you step on a cobblestone and you feel like your muscle movement differently. But then you pocket that and you bring that back with you. And then you are this ever expansive human being. I mean, if we stay stagnant, I think what is that we're doing? Why would we do that to ourselves?
Yeah, I really love what you just said about pocketing. We talk a lot about that on retreats, typically on like the last few days of our multi-day retreats, about integrating what we've just learned, observed, experienced, and how do we bring what we call our quote unquote retreat self? How do we integrate that back home with our home self? And I really love that concept of pocketing those experiences, whether they were challenging and you said, okay, I survived that, I can survive anything, or pocketing that little joy of sipping that coffee on that, patio somewhere in the Mediterranean. What for you in any of your trips, what have you found that you've pocketed that's helped you through some tough times in the past few years?
I believe there's nothing more beautiful and potent than, as I mentioned, setting an intention for the day and then seeing it unfold as you're exploring a new terrain, a new city. For example, I set out in Mallorca in Spain for my intention of the day was alchemy, like just turn something. This week wasn't going as planned. Just turn it around though. Turn it into gold. And just stumbling around, wandering into places around the city, I got talking with a shop owner, and I had an event later on that night, and I truly thought we were just going to share a conversation for 20 minutes, and it ended up being the most impactful conversation. We shared stories and authors and YouTube videos with each other, and at the end of our chat, he literally brought out this gold and silver little, like a mind game, a puzzle, if you will. It was a heart. And it was this gold heart. And my intention of the day was alchemy. Just go into the day. And I don't recall what was going on, but what I do recall is that intention unfolded for me. And it completely turned around my perspective on the day and outlook on what can unfold if we really put intention behind each of our interactions, what we're consuming, not only of our bodies, but of our mind as well.
Wow. I love that. And being able to pocket that experience of how powerful that intention was for you and be able to bring that with you every single day back home. And I think that's the power of travel, is we can have these experiences at home. Like, this is not just something that happens while we're traveling, but traveling and being outside of your comfort zones make you more aware. You have more space to focus on these observations and these lessons, because for some of us, maybe we're not working while we're traveling. We're in new environments so that our brains just like firing all the time, taking in new things. So I do think that's such an important part of traveling, is if you allow it to be, it could be such a catalyst for personal growth that you do take home with you.
Right.
And I really feel like you've like the embodiment of that, all the stories that you're telling and just sharing. It seems like you're such a mindful, observant, intentional traveler. And I think it's something that I think everyone listening can definitely take away with them, is when they go on their trips, whether it's a cruise or an all-inclusive or a remote village in Italy or maybe the Peace Corps or a family vacation at the beach. How can we set our intention? How can we be more mindful of the way that we're traveling and observing different cultures? So I just appreciate this conversation so much. I've loved just hearing your story and hearing the ethos of your business depth theory, and how all of your experiences, traveling or not, help you inform and help you grow as a person, but also you're helping all of these brands all over the country, all over the world, all your clients, really helping them see the purpose and the intention in their work. And I love that so much. So thank you. I want to, ask you if you have anything else you want to share before we close with our rapid fire travel questions.
Boy, what don't I want to share? I don't know. Lean into the senses, like we're saying, the pocketing, the mobility of the mind. If you just look around, Take it in. Take it in. Because like we said, tomorrow is not promised, but lean into those senses. You can learn a lot from yourself that way. And perhaps don't put so much thought into it at the same time. Just childlike wonder,
Yeah, just be.
Stay curious.
I love curious. That is such an important part of childhood that we tend to lose when we get into adulthood because there are so many expectations on us and so many just obligations. We gotta put food on the table, right?
Sure.
But if we can kind of lean back into that curiosity, I do think the world will feel like our oyster. The world will feel like there's so many possibilities.
In an email that Rising Nature Retreat sent out just the other day, it was mentioning on the topic of if you don't have time for the 10 minutes of meditation, take a deep inhale before that sip of coffee. It's like little things like that.
Yeah. Stay
curious. Just switch things up in your day-to-day. It doesn't have to be when you're traveling, but God, is it good when it is.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much. Okay, so I like to end these episodes with quick rapid fire questions. Okay. And we'll just go from there and see what comes up.
Yeah.
All right. So if you could only go back to one country or a town or a place for the rest of your life, where would it be and why?
Ericeira, Portugal. To surf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just love it.
Oh my God. I remember the date, the time, the people around me. Yeah. That's leaning into the senses.
I have to note that one down.
Absolutely.
All right. And number 2, what is number 1 on your bucket list right now?
Let's go to Australia.
Ooh, yeah. You know me. I'll go with you. Pack me in your bag. I'm good. All right. Number 3, what's the biggest life lesson you've learned while traveling?
If we can envision it, it can unfold.
Love it. And the last one, give one piece of advice to an inspiring explorer.
Set an intention for your travels. Just one. Remind yourself of it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate this conversation so much. I know our listeners are going to take a lot away from it. Can you just share where people can find you, about your business, personally, whatever you want to share, all the things, let people know where they can find you and connect.
Whole big amount, immense appreciation for you, Kelly, for having me. I appreciate it so much. And yeah, come say hi, ciao, hola, over on Instagram at Depth Theory. And my website is depththeory.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Transform with Travel podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode of inspiration, adventure, and exploration. If you felt inspired by this episode, please rate and review in whatever streaming app you're listening from. This allows us to spread the word even more and continue to serve up weekly doses of adventure. As always, we'd love if you could share the episode with someone in your life who you think will benefit from this conversation. Thanks so much for listening. This is your reminder to get out there and keep on exploring.